I do think it's a myth, the whole someone comes out of the crowd and wins the playoffs, because even if they come out of the crowd and get in the playoffs, they haven't tended to win from fifth or sixth place very much. Aston Villa is the example in 18-19, but I just cannot accept a team with Grealish, Mings, Abraham, Tuanzebe, and knowing what we know about the finances of that team as some kind of underdog that just comes out of nowhere. Aston Villa did not come out of nowhere. We all knew what was going on there. Is it? I know it's always tight. Is this tighter than normal? It does seem slightly more crazy. I don't know if anyone in the comments can give us numbers on amount of teams, but it does seem a more ridiculous one this season. So therefore, Ben, are the chances of somebody coming out of the pack and breaking what I call a myth far higher this season?
Yeah, I mean, it is ridiculously congested in there at the moment. And I mean, I can speak as a North End fan that's sort of living through this at this stage. And, we went on this, really bad run in January where, we lost Harrison Armstrong. We had another osmotic suspension to deal with, some key injuries popping up as well. But then we get a win, a couple of draws, and we're now, bang level with sixth again. It's a really weird league whereby you can't afford to go on these prolonged losing streaks. But even if you do and you have a rough month or so, you're only ever a couple of games from being straight back in there again.
Preach.
I think, the examples of a team, coming from nowhere, and it sort of relates to that Aston Villa shout again, the teams with the momentum at the moment that are not in the top six, it feels like Southampton and Birmingham, who are probably two of the strongest squads, who on paper, I think most of us probably would have had predicted to be in there regardless. And it feels like they're the teams with that bit of momentum at the moment that if a team is going to put together a cohesive winning streak, then I could definitely see a case to argue that one of those maybe would be in there. But then you're just running into so many sides at the moment who I think are going to probably be on a similar points tally come the end of the season. You're looking at your Derbies, Wrexhams, North End, Bristol City. You go down to Watford, QPR. There's not a lot between these sides at the moment. And yeah, I mean, the barrier to entry will be really interesting because I think you're going to get a lot of teams on a similar amount of points, then maybe with that gap up to sixth place that Southampton and Birmingham, a lot of people are talking about at the moment. But I think you'd be foolish to write off any of those other sides that are around them as well.
Yeah. So Southampton, if they were to do 2 points per game from now, what would that be? 28, 74, which it feels like someone going on a run could push it. I know you've been tracking the bookies as well. I did it the other day.
Yeah.
And they're going with the money, as in it's Wrexham, it's Southampton, it's Birmingham. So your year one parachute team plus your two, big backed owners there. So I'd be interested in your take on the follow the money theory. I do like what's happening at Derby, I've got to say, because you've got a very clear way of playing, a very credible manager. You've got Morris returning, you've got Smodix signing, and you just know what you're going to get with Derby. And they're the weird ones this year. They're the only ones that are much better away than they are at home. Sorry, I said a lot. Can you just talk to me about the follow the money theory there? Is it just as simple as just, okay, watch out for Wrexham, Southampton and Birmingham will be one of them?
Yeah, I think there is some logic that could come into it whereby squad depth is obviously going to be a key thing in these final few weeks of the season. And you do look at the players that some of those clubs have in reserve. Yeah. That absolutely could make the difference between now and the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, you look at the way that Birmingham spent in January to really strengthen that squad back in Chris Davis and think that there's no way that they're not going to be in and amongst this race at the moment. Wrexham, I mean, they've got 2 11s that maybe you could throw out there and they'd both be, equally as competitive. How much firepower they've got in the final third at the moment. It's a tricky one because I think you can feasibly pick out 2 or 3 key strengths of every side and one or two weaknesses to go along with that as well, which makes it really interesting. Derby, like you say, I really like. Key players returning at the right point as well. Only real slight gripe with them is a similar thing to Ipswich. They've not got a great record when they concede first in matches. It's quite important that they score first, but when they do, more often than not, they go on to win, and obviously so efficient away from home. I just think I've had this thing about me for a few weeks now, something at the bottom of me, and as much as I would love it to be Preston, it's just still screaming Wrexham. I just think that they're going to be hanging about there for this whole season. And with how deep that squad goes, the rotations that Parkinson can make, all the doubters, at the start of the season, I was probably one of them thinking they can't go again, can they? I feel like they could, but it's going to be so tight. And yeah, there's only going to be 1 or 2 points, I think, between a lot of these teams on the final day, which will make for a thrilling final day, but probably quite a nervous one for any team in and amongst this race.